Welcome back, everyone. Cryptic here. My name is Chase. This is Gage. We are doing another video. It's been a little while. Thank you to the whole 4 people who have watched our video. We actually finally topped 100 views in a single video. Wild times, man. How do you feel about that? Twice.
Twice as short.
Oh, shit. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Thank you, guys.
Like 87 on the other short.
Dude, that's crazy. 87 people. Think if we had 87 people in a room that we were talking to.
That's too many people.
That's quite a lot of people.
Yeah.
I remember I had a class of 20-something people in college when I was doing my public speaking class. Fucking hated that.
You took public speaking?
Yeah, I had to get it out of the way.
Yeah.
It was my very first semester. I was like, you know what, fuck this. Let's get this over with.
That was a bad move.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, today we're talking about, like, an incredible story of survival.
Nice.
It gets incredibly gruesome.
Oh.
It's very inspiring at the same time, and I think we're just going to jump right into it.
Along the same lines of, like, the, 27 or 48 hours to do the gnawed his arm off, or, like, that type of survival?
This is way worse.
Oh, God.
Yeah, this is brutal. I was very, surprised when I read about it. It's pretty intense. There's been movies made about it. I think the movie is called Alive. There's been multiple books written about it from the perspectives of these people.
Okay.
So it's very well documented. So this is about Uruguayan Flight 571, and this is mostly a rugby team.
A rugby team.
In South America, and they were flying across or through Chile. And in Chile, if you think of it on the map, it's just that big-ass long country, you know? Mm-hmm. Most of it is mountains. It's the Andes mountain range is what it is. And it's incredibly cold, incredibly desolate. There ain't nothing there but fucking snow and rock.
Makes sense.
And so it crashed because of pilot error. This wasn't a fuck-up of the plane. It was pilot error.
How long ago was this?
Answer your question, it was from 1972.
Gotcha.
And you were saying modern aircrafts they have a lot of safety features. It's pretty much autopilot, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so from my understanding, it's incredibly hard to actually crash a plane because you have, at least in more modern aircraft, I could be wrong about this, but there are the autopilot systems and things like that, where once you get the plane up, the pilot can actually walk away from the cabin if needed. And the plane would still continue on its course.
Yeah, so what happened here was he didn't really know he was directly over the Andes Mountains. And so they pretty much smacked into the mountains.
Yikes.
Bounced off a few of them. I'm not even joking.
How did he not know? That seems like quite a gruesome error.
Yeah, well, he didn't know somehow.
Okay.
It was actually the co-pilot who fucked it up, and the co-pilot was like... new, obviously.
So he didn't want to say anything. Because, he caught it early, and then he was like, I'm embarrassed, though, so we're just going to see how this plays out.
Maybe.
Right?
Yeah. So they're flying, the rugby team and other people, and they start crashing into the Andes Mountains. Everybody starts screaming.
Ah, shit.
Of the 45 people on the aircraft, 3 passengers and 2 crew members were killed when it broke apart. So 5 people immediately killed.
Okay.
Which, you think a plane crash, it's pretty good.
Yeah. It's a weird thing to say that's pretty good about 5 people dying, but I mean...
all things considered.
All things considered, not bad.
So it was a navigator, a steward, and a couple of the passengers who died. A few seconds later, Daniel Shaw and Carlos Valeda fell out of the rear of the plane. Valeda actually survived his fall, but had landed deep into snow and was asphyxiated in the snow. Yeah.
Hopefully it was a little erotically.
His body was found by fellow passengers a few days later.
In a state of emotional joy?
No.
Oh, okay.
So at least 4 died from the impact. So 5 died going down, 4 died from the impact.
Damn.
When it hit the snowbank, which ripped the remaining seats from their anchors and hurled them to the front of the plane. Team physician, Dr. Francisco Nicola, and his wife, Esther Nicola, died. Pilot Freitas died instantly when the nose gear compressed in the instrument panel against his chest, forcing his head out of the window. So yeah, pretty gruesome.
Yikes.
The co-pilot who caused this problem was critically injured and trapped in the crushed cockpit. He asked one of the passengers to find his pistol and shoot him, but the passenger declined.
What a pussy. Yeah, I'm glad the fucking passenger declined, dude.
Oh, man.
No, you can't just cause a plane to go down and be like, oh, I just want to not have to deal with this. Fuck you, dude. You're the one that needs to suffer the most. I'm glad you didn't die immediately.
Oh, he was just having a bad work day, man.
Fuck this guy.
You ever fucked up at work and had to make your coworkers work hard?
I didn't fuck up at work and kill an entire plane full of people, dude.
Well.
An entire plane full of people minus 3 people. What are you gonna get?
It was
to?
like 8.
Oh my god.
33 remained. Be careful. You're good.
Okay.
33 remained alive, although many were seriously or critically injured, with wounds including broken legs, which had happened when the fucking chairs dislodged. Canessa and Gustavo Zerbino, both medical students, acted quickly to assess the severity of people's wounds and treat those that they could help most. Pareda actually had a skull fracture and remained in a coma for 3 days on the top of this mountain.
Okay. Damn, dude, that's rough. Who was taking care of him at the time? Do we know?
The other medical students, most likely.
Gotcha.
Enrique Platero had a piece of metal stuck in his abdomen that, when removed, brought a few inches of intestine with it.
Those medical students are
but
really
he
getting some
immediately
hands-on
began
training.
helping others.
What a G,
Yeah,
dude.
these people...
That's incredible.
Most of these people are straight Gs.
I don't understand how you could get some of your intestines removed and then just be like, all right, guys, let's go help the others. Fucking
Yeah.
good job to that guy.
Yeah. Both of Arturo Nagura's legs were broken in several places. None of the passengers with compound fractures survived.
Ooh.
Yeah, so most of these people still died.
Yeah.
The Chilean Air Search and Rescue Service was notified within the hour that the flight went missing. 4 planes searched that afternoon until dark. News of the missing flight reached Uruguayan media about 6 p.m. that evening, and the search and rescue officers listened to radio transmissions and concluded the aircraft had come down in one of the most remote and inaccessible areas of the Andes and called on the Andes Rescue Group of Chile. Unknown to the people on board or the rescuers, the flight had crashed about 13 miles from the former hotel, an abandoned resort in Hot Springs that might have provided limited shelter. So they weren't too far from shelter, but they didn't know that, obviously.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
On the second day, 11 aircraft from Argentina, Chile, and Uruguay searched for the downed flight. The search area included their location, and a few aircraft flew near the crash sites. The survivors tried to use lipstick recovered from the luggage to write an SOS on the roof of the aircraft, but they quit after realizing that they lacked enough lipstick to make letters visible from the air.
I thought you were going to say that it was clear.
Clear lipstick?
They got halfway through writing it and they were like, fuck, this is clear, this isn't cherry.
No. They also built a cross in the snow using luggage, but it was unseen by the search and rescue aircraft. They saw 3 aircraft fly overhead but were unable to attract their attention, and none of the aircraft crew spotted the white fuselage against the snow. White plane.
Yeah, have none of these people seen, like, Bear Grylls or anything like that? You take a watch and you fucking shine it. See that? See that extra little sheen? Extra little shine? Bam, bam, bam. That's how you get an attention.
That's a good idea.
Exactly. That's like piece number 1, and you're telling me with a fucking broken plane, there has to be glass everywhere. Could have wrote on the top the plane with some blood, too. Like, these people are resourceful.
Maybe it was totally overcast that day. There was no sun.
I mean, maybe.
I mean, yeah. The harsh conditions gave searchers little hope that they would find anyone alive, and the search efforts were canceled after 8 days. On the 21st of October, after searching for a total of 142 hours, the searchers concluded that there was no hope and terminated the search. The snow had not melted at this time in the southern hemisphere spring, and they hoped to find the bodies in December when the snow melted in the summer.
Was anybody alive at that point when the search was called off?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Dozens.
Oh.
During the first night, 5 more people died: co-pilot Legura, Francisco Abal, and 3 other people. The 28 surviving passengers removed the broken seats and other debris from the aircraft and fashioned a crude shelter. They crammed themselves into the broken fuselage in a space about 2.5 by 3 meters. So they made this tiny little shelter, and 28 people were in there. To try and keep out some of the cold, they used luggage, seats, and snow to close off the open end of the fuselage. They improvised in other ways. Fito Strauch, devised a way to obtain water in freezing conditions by using sheet metal from under the seats and placing snow on it. Somehow that melts it. I don't know. The solar collector melted snow which dripped into empty wine bottles. To combat snow blindness, he improvised sunglasses using the sun visors in the pilot's cabin, wire, and a bra strap to make sunglasses.
I like that.
Yeah.
What's the wire and the bra strap for, though? I could see the wire, like... Maybe the wire's just to make a frame?
Yeah.
The bra strap is to strap it around the head?
I think so,
That would make sense, because I was thinking of wire around the ears, but bloody ears, cold temperatures, not fun.
So they removed the seat covers, which were partially made of wool, to use against the cold. They also used the seat cushions as snowshoes. And Marcelo Perez, who was captain of the rugby team, assumed leadership of, like, the survival.
Well, makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're the captain of the rugby team, might as well be captain of people's lives.
Yep. And so Parado, who was the medical student, woke from his coma after 3 days to learn that his mother had died and his 19-year-old sister Susanna was severely injured. He attempted to keep her alive without success. Pretty much if you got an injury at this point, you were donezo.
Look, man, I'm really trying to lighten the mood here, but you were being a downer.
Dude, I'm telling you. This is a downer story.
Fuck.
But it gets crazy.
It gets crazy. Okay.
The remaining 27 faced severe difficulty surviving the nights when temperatures dropped to negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Negative 30 degrees Celsius.
That's real chilly, dude. That's pretty chilly.
Yeah.
My freezer don't even go that low.
All had lived near the sea. Some of the team members had never seen snow before, and none had experienced at high altitude. The survivors lacked medical supplies, cold weather clothing and equipment or food, and only had 3 pairs of sunglasses among them to help prevent snow blindness. The survivors found a small transistor radio jammed between seats on the aircraft, and Roy Harley improvised a very long antenna using electrical cable from the plane. These people are crafty.
That is pretty crafty.
Yeah. He heard the news that the search was canceled on their 11th day on the mountain.
Oh, why did you make that antenna, dude?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And Pierce Paul Reed's book, Alive, The Story of the Andes Survivors, describes the moments after this discovery, quote, "The others who had clustered around Roy upon hearing the news began to sob and pray, all except Nando Parado, who looked calmly up at the mountains which rose to the west. Gustavo came out of the aircraft and, seeing their faces, knew what they had heard. Nikolic climbed through the hole in the wall of suitcases and rugby shirts, crouched at the mouth of the dim tunnel, and looked at the mournful faces which were turned towards him. 'Hey boys,' he shouted, 'there's some good news. We just heard on the radio. They've called off the search.' Inside the crowded aircraft there was silence. As the hopelessness of their predicament enveloped them, they wept. 'Why the hell is that good news?' Page shouted angrily at Nikolic. 'Because it means,' Nikolic said, 'that we're going to get out of here on our own.' The courage of this one boy prevented a flood of total despair." Dumbass boy.
You have 2 types of people in this world. There are the fighters, and then there are people like me. If I heard information like that, I would just be like, all right, deuces.
It was a good run, homies.
Exactly. Like, up top, it was all good. All right. It's all good. Have fun. Yeah, you guys do that. I'm just gonna go, like, lay in the snow.
Lay in the snow,
Sleep
yeah.
outside tonight.
The survivors had very little food. 8 chocolate bars, a tin of mussels, 3 small jars of a tin of almonds, a few dates, candies, dried plums, and several bottles of wine. During the days following the crash, they divided this into small amounts to make their meager supply last as long as possible. Paredo ate a single chocolate-covered peanut over 3 days.
No shot. I don't believe that.
What do you mean you don't believe that?
A single chocolate-covered peanut that's the size of my fucking pinky nail. He ate that over 3 days.
You can go like 2 weeks without eating if you have to, man.
Well, no, I understand that, but that's like eating a single potato chip. You don't just do that.
I see, yeah.
I'm calling bullshit. That's where I draw the line in this story.
Even with this strict rationing, their food stock dwindled quickly. There was no natural vegetation, and no animals on either the glacier or nearby snow-covered mountain. The food ran out completely after a week, and the group tried to eat parts of the airplane, such as the cotton inside the seats and leather. They became sicker from eating these.
Yeah,
naturally.
No shit. I'm kind of surprised they didn't just go for the cannibalism, though. Oh.
Knowing that rescue efforts had been called off and faced with starvation and death, Those still alive agreed that, should they die, the others might consume their bodies to live. With no choice, the survivors ate the bodies of their dead friends. Canessa later described the decision to eat the people and their dead friends and family members as, quote, "Our common goal was to survive. What we lacked was food. We had long since run out of the meager pickings we found on the plain, and there was no vegetation or animal life to be found. After just a few days, we were feeling the sensation of our bodies consuming themselves just to remain alive. Before long, we would become too weak to recover from starvation. We knew the answer, but it was too terrible to contemplate. The bodies of our friends and teammates, preserved outside in the snow and ice, remained vital, life-giving protein that could help us survive. But could we do it? After a long time, we agonized. I went out in the snow and prayed to God for guidance. Without his consent, I felt I would be violating the memory of my friends, that I would be stealing their souls."
God. I just think, though, at that point, if you are religious, can you actually be like, hey, this is okay now? Like, I'm gonna be okay with this, and just live with yourself afterwards? Because would you even be able to, like, go back or try to talk to God after you just did a fucking cardinal sin? But then again, by the same token, he was the one that put you in that situation.
He was, yeah, and he also killed all your friends.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
No, that's real fucked up, though.
The quote continues, We wondered whether we were going mad even to contemplate such a thing. Had we turned into brute savages, or was this the only sane thing to do? Truly, we were pushing the limits of our fear. The group survived by collectively deciding to eat flesh from the bodies of their dead comrades. This decision was not taken lightly, as most of the dead were classmates, close friends, or relatives. Canessa used broken glass from the aircraft windshield as a cutting tool. He set the example by swallowing the first matchstick-sized strip of frozen flesh. Kitty, you gotta go. No.
He is breaking up the tension a little bit, though, because good lord, this is a dark story.
Yeah.
Like, oh god. So did they just eat it raw? Like this is a fucking sushi bar or something?
No, not quite.
It sounded like it. You said it took a fucking piece of glass and a matchstick-sized piece of flesh that he ended up eating?
They find better ways.
Okay, that's good.
So he set the example by swallowing the first matchstick-sized strip of frozen flesh. Later on, several others did the same. The next day, more survivors ate the meat offered to them, but a few refused or could not keep it down. Yeah.
What would you do in that situation?
So this is the thing. I think you eat it. And I don't even think it's a conscious decision. It's just like, your mind would tell yourself not to starve to death, and you would just find yourself eating it.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know, that if I am ever dead next to you, and for some reason you don't have food, you get to just eat this juicy bod.
Yeah.
But...
just get some fucking, like, Frank's Red Hot. Toss it, dude.
I'm in a different boat.
You wouldn't eat it?
I don't think that I would.
You would.
I'm not
There's
religious.
No shot, man.
I don't like the thought of desecration of someone dead. Like, it's really weird considering, like I said, I'm not religious at all. But death is something that I have a lot of respect for. And I just think that if it was a similar situation, you were dead, I would rather also die than eat you.
What if I told you, my dying fucking wish, dude, is that you eat me?
I would call over whatever woodland animals are around.
Nope. I look you dead in the eyes, Chase, as I'm dying, and say, dude, I die here, but you don't. Eat me.
I would say bite me.
You better eat me, dog.
Well, let's not get in that situation. How about that?
Well, you don't want to... We were planning a trip to the Andes, dude.
That's after our trip over to the, what is it? The Bennington Triangle, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, we'll figure it out after that.
Truthfully, this is just, like, our, what is it called? Itinerary? Like our travel guide?
Makes sense.
Okay. Anyways, in his memoir, Miracle of the Andes, 72 Days on the Mountain and My Long Trek Home, Parado wrote about this decision, quote, At high altitude, the body's caloric needs needs are astronomical. We were starving in earnest with no help of finding food, but our hunger soon grew so voracious that we searched anyway. Again and again we scoured the fuselage in search of crumbs and morsels. We tried to eat strips of leather from torn pieces of luggage, though we knew that the chemicals they'd been treated with would do us more harm than good. We ripped open seat cushions hoping to find straw, but found only inedible upholstery foam. Again and again I came to the same conclusion. Unless we wanted to eat the clothes we were wearing, there was nothing here but aluminum, plastic, ice, and rock. Parado protected the corpses of his sister and mother, and they were never eaten. They dried the meat in the sun, which made it more palatable. So they're pretty much eating people jerky. They were initially so revolted by the experience that they could only eat skin, muscle, and fat. When the supply of flesh was diminished, however, they also ate hearts, lungs, and brains.
Damn.
I just imagine like a helicopter pilot flying overhead and you just see people just bashing a skull.
I mean, that shit happened. Oh, God.
It's brutal, man.
Dude, that is brutal.
What's even worse, all of the passengers were Roman Catholic. Some feared eternal damnation. According to Reed, some rationalized the act of cannibalism as equivalent to the Eucharist, the body and blood of Jesus Christ under the appearance of bread and wine. Others justified it according to a Bible verse found in John 15:13. No man hath greater love than this, that he lay down his life for his friends.
I mean, the human mind's incredible, because you can rationalize literally anything if you decide that that is what you need to do. But I still go back as far as those Roman Catholics. That's God's problem, dude. He was the one that put you in that situation. If that's what you believe, like,
true,
he's kind of an asshole.
In the Bible, he always puts people in tests that are just fucking ridiculous. He's like, kill your son. And then the dude almost kills his son. He's like, wait, don't kill your son. I was just testing you. Literally. So, like, it sounds like quite the test.
That. But
eat your comrades. Tricked you. Don't eat them. You're actually going to starve up here. Well,
right?
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's just a real shitty situation all around.
In the end, all of those who had survived, as of the decision to eat the bodies, did so, though not all without reservations. Javier Mathal and his wife Liliana, the only surviving female passenger, were the last survivors to eat human flesh. She had strong religious convictions and only reluctantly agreed to partake of the flesh after she was told to view it as like Holy Communion.
Partake of the flesh. Sounds a lot different than what it is in this situation.
17 days after the crash, they were up here for 17 days. Near midnight on the 29th of October, an avalanche struck the aircraft as the survivors slept. It filled the fuselage and killed 8 people. The death of Perez, the team captain and leader of the survivors, along with the loss of Liliana, who had nursed the survivors, quote, like a mother and a saint, were extremely discouraging to those remaining alive. So their leader and the only lady left died from a fucking avalanche. Dude, God really is a dick at this point.
Yeah. Like, he's just driving home a point. Like, oh my God, what did these people do?
That's a good point.
Oof.
The avalanche completely buried the fuselage and filled the interior to within 1 meter of the roof. 3 foot of the roof. The survivors trapped inside soon realized they were running out of air. Parado found a metal pole from the luggage racks, and they were able to get one of the windows from the pilot's cabin open enough to poke a hole through the snow, providing ventilation. With considerable difficulty on the morning of the 31st of October, wait, what is today?
21st of October.
Okay, this is almost exactly, 51 years ago.
That's crazy.
With considerable difficulty on the morning of 31st of October, they dug a tunnel from the cockpit to the surface, only to encounter a furious blizzard that left them no choice but to stay inside the fuselage. For 3 days, the remaining survivors were trapped in the extremely cramped space with the buried fuselage with about 1 meter of headroom. Together with the corpses of those who had died in the avalanche with no other choice, on the 3rd day they began to eat the raw flesh of their newly dead friends. Dude, that's like cannibalism squared. Eating the cannibals.
Oh my God.
Parado later said, quote, "It was soft and greasy. streaked with blood and bits of wet gristle. I gagged hard when I placed it in my mouth. With Perez dead, 3 men, Daniel and his cousins Eduardo and Fito, assumed leadership. They took over harvesting flesh from the deceased and distributed it to the others. Before the avalanche, a few of the survivors became insistent that their only way of survival would be to climb over the mountains and search for help. Because of the co-pilot's dying statement that the aircraft had passed Curico, the group believed the Chilean countryside was just a few kilometers away to the west. They were actually more than 55 miles to the east, deep in the Andes.
Yikes.
The snow that buried the fuselage gradually melted as summer arrived. Survivors made several brief expeditions in the immediate vicinity of the aircraft in the first few weeks after the crash. But they found that altitude sickness, dehydration, snow blindness, malnourishment, and the extreme cold during the nights made traveling any significant distance an impossible task. The passengers decided that a few members would seek help. Several survivors were determined to join the expedition team, including Canessa, one of the 2 medical students. But others were less willing or unsure of their ability to withstand such a physically exhausting ordeal. Dude, recently I've spent a lot of time hiking in the mountains. It's difficult, man. You can be full of fucking good-ass food, just woke up after a good day. It's difficult, and imagine it being snowy and rocky and you're like malnourished as hell, can't see.
Yeah, that would not be a good time.
Numa and Antonio were chosen to accompany Canessa and Parado. However, Tucati's leg was stepped on and the bruise had become septic, so he was unable to join the expedition. Canessa, Parado, and Vizintin were among the strongest and were allocated large rations of food and the warmest clothes. That's putting it lightly, right?
Yeah.
And the warmest clothes. They were also spared the daily manual labor around the crash site that was essential for the group's survival so they could build their strength. At Canessa's urging, they waited nearly 7 days to allow for higher temperatures. The expedition hoped to get to Chile to the west, but a large mountain lay west of the crash site, persuading them to try heading east first. They hoped that the valley they were in would make a U-turn and allow them to start walking west to Chile. On 15th of November, after several hours of walking east, the trio found the largely intact tail section of the aircraft containing the galley, about 1 mile east and downhill of the fuselage.
What is the galley? Do we know?
Containing the galley? I think that's where they put the food, actually.
Okay.
Inside the nearby, they found luggage containing a box of chocolates, 3 meat patties, a bottle of rum, cigarettes, extra clothes, comic books, and a little medicine. They also found the aircraft's 2-way radio. The group decided to camp that night inside the tail section. They built a fire and stayed up late reading comic books.
Must be a nice break from eating your friends and family to
eat chocolate?
Some chocolate, smoking some cigarettes, just kind of...
Maybe it just doesn't hit right now. You're just like, that juicy flesh, man.
I kind of wonder about that, if they ever have cravings or if they ever think, like, this burger's decent, but you remember that time up in the mountains?
You should have had some fucking Asperger, man. That was good.
Seriously, I wonder if there's anything left there. Like, I know it's dark, but
that's
seriously.
So dark, yeah.
I also thought that there was something... I can't remember this exactly. I'd have to look it up. But when consuming human flesh, there's either a bacteria or something along those lines that, like, really starts to fuck with you.
There is something like that, yeah.
Does it make you start craving the flesh more?
I am not sure.
I can't remember exactly what it was. Yeah, I'd have to look it up.
I think it's something... Or maybe it's from an organ or something?
Maybe.
I don't know, but...
Yeah.
They continued east the next morning. On the second night of the expedition, which was their first night sleeping outside, they nearly froze to death. After some debate the next morning, they decided that it would be wiser to return to the tail, remove the aircraft's batteries, and take them back to the fuselage so they might power up the radio and make an SOS call to Santiago for help. Upon returning to the tail, the trio found that the 53-pound batteries were too heavy to take back to the fuselage. That is a pretty fucking heavy battery.
I mean, especially after all things considered.
Even climbing up mountains and shit too.
Right.
That's brutal. Were too heavy to take back to the fuselage, which lay uphill from the tail section. They decided instead that it would be more effective to return to the fuselage and disconnect the radio system from the aircraft's frame, take it back to the tail, and connect it to the batteries. One of the team members, Roy Harley, was an amateur electronics enthusiast, and they recruited his help in this endeavor. Unknown to any of the team members, the aircraft's electrical system used 115 volts AC, while the battery they had located produced 24 volts DC, making the plan futile from the beginning. So why don't you explain that?
He should have known that, though. Granted, I didn't realize that a plane... it was the radio itself runs off 115.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So what happens is with the batteries, they typically will run off either 12 or 24 volt. It could be the batteries themselves are in parallel. That's just lower voltage. It's very common for like automotive and things like that, and it would make sense on the plane. But with the radio, it running at 115, that just means there's a little transformer that would take the 12 volt or 24 volt in this situation that is used for the batteries for like the engine and things like that, and it turns it into electricity that you could end up like plugging something into, like a wall socket, right? So then you can plug that radio into. And what most likely happened in this situation is if they hooked up that 24 volt directly to it, it probably fried something, is my guess.
So you need like an adapter sort of thing.
Kind of. So they're called transformers, which is just a very tightly bound, in a very simple form, a very tightly bound piece of copper wire that just has a bunch of coils that kind of goes all around it, and that'll change the actual properties, I guess, that kind of go through the wire and that can power your things up.
Hey, that's cool. We use some of your expertise.
All right, there you go.
Maybe there's a masturbation question here I can answer.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I might give you a run for your money on that one.
Between the two of us, yeah.
We can nail it.
After several days of trying to make the radio work, they gave up and returned to the fuselage with the knowledge that they would have to climb out of the mountains if they would have any hope of being rescued. On the return trip, they were struck by a blizzard. Harley laid down to die, but Parado would not let him stop and took him back to the fuselage. The party now realized that the only way out was to climb over the mountain to the west, and that such a trek was impossible unless they found a way to survive the freezing night temperatures. The expedition members came up with the idea to use insulation from the rear of the fuselage, copper wire, and waterproof fabric that covered the air conditioning of the plane to fashion a sleeping bag. Parado described in his book, Miracle in the Andes, how they came up with the idea of making a sleeping bag. Quote, "The second challenge would be to protect ourselves from exposure, especially after sundown. At this time of year, we could expect daytime temperatures well above freezing, but the nights are still cold enough to kill us, and we knew now that we couldn't expect to find shelter on the open slopes. We needed a way to survive the long nights without freezing, and the quilted bats of insulation we'd taken from the tail section gave us our solution. As we brainstormed about the trip, we realized we could sew the patches together to create a large, warm quilt. Then we realized that by folding the quilt in half and stitching the seams together, we could create an insulated sleeping bag large enough for all 3 expeditionaries to sleep in. With the warmth of 3 bodies trapped by the insulating cloth, we might be able to control the coldest nights."
I just pray that it wasn't like fiberglass insulation. That would be...
Carlitos took on the challenge. His mother had taught him to sew when he was a boy, and with the needles and thread from the sewing kit found in his mother's cosmetic case, he began to work. To speed the progress, Carlitos taught others to sew, and we all took our turns. Coche, Gustavo, and Fito turned out to be our best and fastest tailors. So after the sleeping bag was completed and Trucati died, Canessa was still hesitant. While others encouraged Parado, none would volunteer to go with him. Parado finally persuaded Canessa to set out, and joined by Vizintin, the 3 men took to the mountain on the 12th of December. So they got there about the 12th of October, so it's been about 2 months.
That's a long time.
It's a long time to be eating people.
Right? Oh.
Climbing the peak. So, on the 12th of December 1972, Parado, Canessa, and Vizintin, lacking mountaineering gear of any kind, began to climb the glacier at 11,000 feet to the 15,000 feet peak blocking their way west. They trekked for over 10 days, traveling 38 miles, seeking help. Based on the aircraft's altimeter, they thought they were at 7,000 feet when they were actually at 11,000 feet. Given the pilot's dying statement that they were near Carico, they believed that they were near... Remember, he was wrong.
Is this... Okay, this is still the dude that got them into the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking bastard.
They believed that they were near the western edge of the Andes and that the closest help lay in that direction. As a result, they brought only a 3-day supply of meat. Parado wore 3 pairs of jeans and 3 sweaters over a polo shirt. He wore 4 pairs of socks wrapped in a plastic shopping bag. They had no technical gear, no map or compass, and no climbing experience. Instead of climbing the ridge to the west, which was somewhat lower than the peak, they climbed straight up the steep mountain. You know, it's important to think, or to remember, that these guys were rugby players. So they're in shape.
Right. Pretty good shape.
So that probably saved them multiple times. They thought they would reach the peak in one day. Parado took the lead, and the other 2 often had to remind him to slow down, although the thin, oxygen-poor air made it difficult for all of them. During part of the climb, they sank up to their hips in the snow, which had been softened by the summer sun. It was still bitterly cold, but the sleeping bags enabled them to survive through the frigid nights. In the documentary film Stranded, Canessa described how on the first night, during the ascent, they had difficulty finding a place to put down the sleeping bag. The storm blew fiercely, and they finally found a spot on the ledge of a rock on the edge of an abyss. Canessa said it was the worst night of his life. The climb was very slow. The survivors of the fuselage watched them climb for 3 days. On the second day, Canessa thought he saw a road to the east and tried to persuade Parado to head in that direction. Parado disagreed, and they argued without reaching a destination. Dumbass. On the 3rd morning of the trek, Canessa stayed at their camp, and the other 2 reached the base of a near vertical wall more than 300 feet tall encased in snow and ice. Parado was determined to hike out or die trying. He used a stick from his pack to carve steps in the wall. He gained the summit of the 15,000 feet high peak before Vizintin, thinking he would see the green valleys of Chile to the west. He was stunned to see a vast array of mountain peaks in every direction. Dude, the despair.
The mental fortitude that these people have to be able to keep going is by far the most impressive thing, because I would have given up day one. Like, 100%. And especially when the radio comes and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, these people are fucked. We're calling off the surge. I'm telling you, man, I would not have what it takes to keep going there.
Hey, I wonder. So if you were there and they found the radio in the battery, would you have been able to tell that it wouldn't work?
Possibly. It would depend on... Actually, most likely, it really depends on the end of, like, the cord end. You would be able to kind of tell from that, because most likely it was kind of plugged in. Could have been hardwired.
So, next question.
Okay.
Could you have made it work? If you found copper wire or something?
You wouldn't be able to fashion yourself a transformer, but if you were to search around, I assume in the wreckage, you may have been able to find the transformer to then be able to wire up to it.
It needed one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because it wouldn't be possible without it.
So you mean you could have saved these people a lot of time if you were there?
Yeah, fuck that. What, this was 20 years before I was born? 30 years?
Yeah. Well, maybe next time.
Maybe next time.
You'll eat me and then you'll save everybody.
Dog, don't put this on me.
They had climbed a mountain on the border of Argentina and Chile, meaning the trekkers were still tens of miles from the green valleys of Chile. Vizintin and Parado rejoined Canessa, where they had slept the night before. At sunset, while sipping the cognac that they had found in the tail section, Parado said, "Roberto, can you imagine how beautiful this would be if we were not dead men?" I imagine, yeah, it's pretty beautiful.
Right. If it was just like a nice 1 or 2 day trip, and you get to go back home, you know, enjoy the warmth of a house, not eating people.
Not eating people.
Yeah, how nice of a trip.
The next morning, the 3 men could see that the hike was going to take much longer than they had originally planned. They were running out of food, so Vizintin agreed to return to the crash site, leaving his remaining portions to the other 2. The return was entirely downhill, and using an aircraft seat as a makeshift sleigh, dude, kind of fun.
I was going to say, a couple bright sides.
He returned to the crash site in 1 hour. Damn.
That's
downhill on a sleigh.
It took 3 days to get there, and just an hour to get back.
He was hauling ass.
It's either that or they were slow as fuck going up, dude.
Probably both, yeah. Parado and Canessa took 3 hours to climb to the summit. When Canessa reached the top and saw nothing but snow-capped mountains for kilometers around them, his first thought was, we're dead. Parado saw 2 smaller peaks on the western horizon that were not covered in snow. A valley at the base of the mountain they stood on wound its way toward the peaks. Parado was sure this was their way out of the mountains. He refused to give up hope. Canessa agreed to go west. Only much later did Canessa learn that the road he saw to the east would have gotten them to rescue sooner and easier. God fucking damn it, Parado.
Dude, that's rough.
On the summit, Parado...
Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When you say road, is this like some type of dusty-ass, dirt-carved road into the side of a mountain? It's not asphalted or anything like that. Yeah. But still, It's a
It's a
legible
trail.
road. You can...
Yeah.
Okay.
Even even a trail for like animals you'd think you might want to take. Like
Makes sense.
it's a path to somewhere.
Right? Someone has been there before. It
Yeah.
would make sense that you want to go there. I don't understand the reasoning behind
Who knows?
Yeah.
They're probably out of their goddamn minds.
that too. Yeah.
On the summit, Parado told Canessa, "We may be walking to our deaths, but I would rather walk to meet my death than wait for it to come to me." Canessa agreed. "You and I are friends, Nando. We have been through so much, now let's go die together." They followed the ridge towards the valley and descended a considerable distance. Dude, I'm telling you, these people are awesome.
How romantic. We've been through so much. Let's die together. Damn.
Boy. Parado and Canessa hiked for several more days. First, they were able to reach the narrow valley that Parado had seen on the top of the mountain, where they found the source of Rio San Jose, leading to Rio Portilla, which meets Rio Azufra at Los Mayantes. So they found a river.
Okay.
They followed the river and reached the snow line. Gradually, there appeared more and more signs of human presence. First, some evidence of camping, and finally, on the 9th day, some cows. Let's go. When they rested that evening, they were very tired, and Canessa seemed unable to proceed further. As the men gathered wood to build a fire, one of them saw 3 men on horseback at the other side of the river. Parado called them, but the noise of the river made it impossible to communicate. One of the men across the river saw Parado and Canessa and shouted back, "Tomorrow!"
Oh my god.
"Tomorrow! I'll get you tomorrow, boys!"
Dude, how devastating. Oh god, okay.
The next day, the man returned. He scribbled a note, attached it, and a pencil to a rock with some string, and threw the message across the river.
So how wide is this river? I assume it's relatively big in that case. If it was like tomorrow, dog.
Yeah.
Like it can't just be like a 20-foot wide river.
No, it's probably, yeah. That's still funny, though.
That is very...
So, and then Parado replied on the note, "I come from a plane that fell in the mountains. I am Uruguayan. We have been walking for 10 days. I have a wounded friend up there. In the plane there are still 14 injured people. We have to get out from here quickly and we don't know how. We don't have any food. We are weak. When are you going to come to fetch us? Please, we cannot even walk. Where are we?" Sergio, a Chilean muleteer, so like a farmer guy, read the note and gave them a sign that he understood. He then talked with the other 2 men, and one of them remembered that several weeks before an acquaintance had asked them if they had heard about the Andes plane crash. They could not imagine that anyone could still be alive. He threw bread to the men across the river. He then rode on horseback westward for 10 hours to bring help. So this dude's a homie.
Okay, he is a homie. Couple things, though. River isn't that big. If you can just chuck something across, like a loaf of bread, or,
That's a good point.
rock with a note.
Maybe it's really fast. It's obviously really cold, but maybe it's really fast too.
Could be. How funny would it have been if he was just like, "Tomorrow, man." Like after he got the note back. Just dipped.
Didn't come back.
Shit.
During the trip, he saw another farmer guy on the south side of the river and asked him to reach the men and to bring them to Los Mantenes. Then he followed the river to its junction, where after crossing a bridge he was able to reach the narrow route that linked the village to the holiday resort. Here he was able to stop a truck and reach the police station. News of the survivors was then relayed to the Chilean army, who contacted army headquarters in Santiago. Meanwhile, Parado and Canessa were brought on horseback to Los Mantenes, where they were fed and allowed to rest. They had hiked about 38 miles over 10 days. Since the plane crash, Canessa had lost almost half of his body weight, about 97 pounds.
Damn.
Yeah.
Muscle memory, though. It'll bring it back. It's fine. You ate plenty of people. You got the protein in.
Right. What if they came back just fat from people?
I wonder how many calories are in a person. I feel like that's been figured out before.
That's a great question. Well,
Yeah.
let's do some quick mental math.
Calories in a person.
Mm-hmm.
Every gram of protein is 4 calories, right?
Okay.
And then every gram of fat is 9. Every gram of carbs is also 4. But, I mean, no, we're not eating bones, lean muscle mass. I mean, for a rugby player, I'm going to say maybe like 70 pounds or so.
Mm-hmm.
How many grams are in 70 pounds? Oh, I'm not good at
Yeah,
conversions.
no idea.
I feel like people are fairly calorically dense, though.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if they got a little bit of fat on them. Not bad, not bad.
Okay, so on the afternoon of the December 22nd, the two helicopters carrying search and rescue personnel reached the survivors. The steep terrain only permitted the pilot to touch down with a single skid. Due to the altitude and weight limits, the two helicopters were able to take only half of the survivors. 4 members of the search and rescue team volunteered to stay with the 7 survivors remaining on the mountain.
How do you decide who gets to go on that first route? Because everyone is so desperate to get out.
I don't know. At least injured first, and then maybe the people who whine the most.
I mean, it would make sense. I figured it may have been like fucking Rochambeau or something.
Maybe, yeah. The survivors slept a final night in the fuselage with the search and rescue party. The second, imagine how bad it stinks in there, for one.
Oh god, yeah. Because
Although,
it's
to be
starting warm
fair,
up too.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
The second flight of helicopters arrived the following morning at daybreak. They carried the remaining survivors to hospitals in Santiago for evaluation. They were treated for a variety of conditions, including altitude sickness, dehydration, frostbite, broken bones, scurvy, and malnutrition. The last remaining survivors were rescued on the 23rd of December, more than 2 months after the crash. Under normal circumstances, the search and rescue team would have brought back the remains of the dead for burial. However, given the circumstances, including that the bodies were in Argentina, the Chilean rescuers left the bodies at the site until authorities could make the necessary decisions. The Chilean military photographed the bodies and mapped the area. Upon being rescued, the survivors initially explained that they had eaten some cheese and other food that they had carried with them, and then local plants and herbs. They planned to discuss the details of how they survived, including their cannibalism, in private with their families. However, rumors circulated in Montevideo immediately after the rescue that the survivors had killed some of the others for food. News reports of cannibalism were published worldwide, except in Uruguay. On the 26th of December, 2 pictures taken by members of Cuerpo de Socorro Andino, the Andean Relief Corps, of a half-eaten human leg were printed on the front page of 2 Chilean newspapers.
God damn. It's just going out to...
They're just clowning on them for surviving. Dude.
I'm taking a step back and I'm just thinking about the newspaper being passed out and fucking plastered on the front page is just a half-eaten leg. What if your kid picks up that paper?
Yeah,
like how fucking traumatizing.
Never seen anything like that on like mainstream news.
Dude, fucking mad, man.
Yeah. Survivors held a press conference on the 28th of December where they recounted the events of the past 72 days. Alfredo Delgado spoke for the survivors. He compared their actions to that of Jesus at the Last Supper, during which he gave his disciples the Eucharist. The survivors received public backlash initially, but after they explained the pact the survivors had made to sacrifice their flesh if they died to help the others survived, the outcry diminished and the families were more understanding. I mean, yeah, I guess if you're the family member of one that died and you're like, oh, you ate my son. That's pretty rough.
Yeah, I mean...
But at the same time...
Given the circumstances, though.
Yeah, your son would have ate them too if he lived.
Right, yeah. I mean, in all seriousness, I don't think that there should be any judgment on them. They did what they needed to live. Like, it was real fucked up, and if anybody had to actually go through that, they are mentally fucking broken. Just let them have this, dude.
Yeah. A Catholic priest heard the survivors' confessions and told them that they were not damned for cannibalism, given the extreme nature of their survival situation. The news of their survival and the actions required to live drew worldwide attention and grew into a media circus. So yeah, there's been multiple books from many of the survivors, and movies and documentaries about this case. I mean, I think, kind of culturally, there's a story that's told about people who 8 people to survive on like a desolate mountain, and it came from this. Like I've seen skit shows of this where they have to like eat the other dude's dick and stuff just to be funny, but like yeah, it actually happened.
Yeah, that's really rough, dude.
And it's a crazy story. I was like, what, the whole time reading it.
Yeah, no, I mean, this was definitely one of the more intense ones.
Yeah, you know, I didn't think it would be that intense, but yeah.
Well, I mean, you did a pretty good job walking through what happened there, painting a good picture of people getting sliced up and shit like that.
With like broken glass, man.
Yeah.
So that was the story of the Chilean plane crash and the poor rugby players who had to eat people to survive. I mean, honestly, it was inspiring in some way, I think.
Sure. How can you elaborate?
I mean, look, man, there's not much of a worse situation you can be put in. And to actually do what you need to do to survive, it shows some heroicism, if you ask me.
I mean, that's fair. Respect to the people who are, I guess, braver than me, or just stronger, because, like I said, 100%, I would have just fucking deuced out. I seriously, I would have just laid the snow and been like, I'm sleeping outside tonight. And that would have been that.
Maybe that happened. I don't know. Could have happened.
I mean, I would have been tasty.
Yeah, and then, yeah, would have just ate your ass. All right. You want to do a quick outro?
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. If you like the video, please do like, share it. We are just a small channel. If
Smash
you guys,
that like button.
Hell yeah, brother. If you guys have any recommendations for topics you would like us to talk about, anything that we could do better, anything to improve, let us know. Any type of feedback is always appreciated. And if you stayed this long, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun. See you next time.